Beginnings and belonging. Justin Taylor paused, adjusting the simple button-down shirt he wore, his fingers smoothing out a barely noticeable wrinkle in his pants. Standing in his modestly decorated bedroom, he took a deep breath, reminding himself why he'd chosen to live here, despite his immense success. Success that would surprise anyone glancing at the quiet man in the mirror, dressed simply and living in a neighborhood that hadn't changed much since he grew up here. Success that seemed to surprise even Justin some days, as though he could still see himself as that young boy from a small apartment, working toward impossible dreams on an old computer. Years had passed since he first walked through the streets of his childhood neighborhood as a young man, driven by a desire to make something of himself. Looking back, he could still feel the excitement, the sense of purpose that fueled him through all the trials that lay ahead. The late nights spent poring over textbooks at the old library, the weekends devoted to learning to code, the countless times he was met with doubt, suspicion, and outright prejudice. It hadn't been easy. He knew his achievements were a testament to his relentless perseverance, as much as they were to the power of resilience. Now a tech billionaire, Justin was known for his revolutionary software that helped make technology more accessible to marginalized communities. His rise had been meteoric, and his reputation only grew with each milestone he achieved. But what most people didn't see, and couldn't understand, was that beneath the polished exterior lay countless hours of sacrifice, challenges that sometimes felt impossible to overcome, and the pain of enduring bias and doubt even as he continued to excel. Justin picked up his phone, quickly checking his messages, noting the alert reminding him of the evening's community event. It was a gathering close to his heart, an annual fundraiser for local youth programs, one of the countless initiatives he helped fund in the hope of giving kids from neighborhoods like his a better start. It was a familiar cycle for him. Remembering the barriers he faced had inspired him to tear those same walls down for others. He was looking forward to it, but knowing he'd be there for hours, he realized he should take a moment to enjoy something special for himself first. A thought crossed his mind, and he smiled at the idea. Maybe a nice dinner, he murmured. There was a certain upscale restaurant he'd heard of, popular among the city's wealthy and elite, known for its elegant decor, refined atmosphere, and exceptional cuisine. It was a place he'd never visited, partly due to his casual style, and partly because he often preferred supporting smaller, family-run establishments. But tonight, something told him to go. Why not? He said aloud, amused at the thought. Justin grabbed his keys, feeling a sense of anticipation as he headed toward his car. He drove through the familiar streets, past landmarks from his youth that held memories both sweet and bitter. Here was the diner he'd once worked at as a teenager, scrubbing dishes after school. There was the park where he used to go to clear his head during difficult times. And as he turned the corner toward the restaurant, he noticed a few familiar faces, people he'd grown up with who'd watched his success from afar. The restaurant came into view, with its grand entrance illuminated by soft, golden lights. Justin parked his car, a modest sit-in that surprised the valet as he handed over the keys with a kind, "Take good care of her. She's been with me through thick and thin." He offered a friendly smile that seemed to put the valet at ease, who nodded back with an admiring look, clearly recognizing Justin from news articles or community events. As he approached the entrance, Justin could feel the weight of a familiar tightness in his chest, one that had been his companion in so many other upscale places. No matter how many prestigious awards he'd received or how much wealth he'd accumulated, he never felt completely free from the eyes that would judge him on sight. Even now, years into his success, he was keenly aware of his appearance, his casual attire, his unassuming car, and most significantly, the color of his skin. His heart beat a little faster as he reached for the door, reminding himself that he had every right to be there, that his hard work and success had earned him a place at any table. The moment he entered, he sensed the shift in atmosphere. Conversations paused, heads turned, and subtle whispers filled the room. Justin was no stranger to these reactions, and though he kept his composure, He couldn't deny the familiar sting that came with the judgmental stares, the unspoken evaluations passing between patrons. He knew what they were thinking. Here was a man, dressed plainly, without the outward symbols of wealth they expected. He reminded himself, as he had done countless times before, that he was more than worthy of being here. A tall, slender woman approached him, her icy blue eyes assessing him with barely concealed scrutiny. Her demeanor was elegant but cold, each movement practiced and intentional. This was Rita, the restaurant's manager, a woman known among the staff for her strict adherence to high standards, and her particularly discerning eye for maintaining the establishment's exclusivity. "Good evening." Justin greeted her with a polite, warm tone. "I'd like a table for one, please." Rita's lips curved into a smile, but there was no warmth in it. She looked him up and down, her eyes pausing on his attire with a slight, disdainful flicker. "I'm not sure," she began, her voice carrying a tone that was both patronizing and dismissive, "if this is quite the place you're looking for." Her voice was just loud enough for nearby patrons to hear, their expressions shifting from mild curiosity to amusement. The words lingered, and Justin could feel the eyes of others on him. He sensed their silent approval of her judgment. Rita tilted her head, her smile deepening but never reaching her eyes. "This establishment," she continued, with the condescension of someone accustomed to holding authority, "caters to a certain clientele. I don't think we have anything that would suit someone like you." For a moment, Justin felt his cheeks burn with humiliation, the weight of years of discrimination and dismissal pressing down on him. He was a man who'd built an empire, who'd clawed his way to success through countless sleepless nights and battles against prejudice. Yet here he was again, facing the same old bias, the polite but unyielding barrier of elitism. But he kept his composure, swallowing the resentment that threatened to rise. His voice was steady when he finally responded. "I see. I apologize for the misunderstanding." "Oh, no need to apologize," Rita replied, her tone dripping with insincerity. "Perhaps you should try the diner down the street. I hear they serve an excellent burger." Justin nodded politely, his expression unchanging as he turned and left the restaurant. Behind him, he could hear the faint murmur of conversations and the poorly concealed snickers of the other diners. The laughter followed him outside, echoing in the quiet evening air. For a moment, he felt the familiar pain of rejection, the lingering sting of being judged not for his accomplishments or his character, but for superficial things like appearance and assumptions about his worth. Without thinking, he found himself wandering down the street and into a nearby park, the calm of the night surrounding him as he sank onto a bench. As he sat there, memories surfaced unbidden. He remembered being turned away from job interviews, despite his qualifications, the cautious stares in high-end stores, the times he'd been pulled over in his old neighborhood for routine checks that always seemed to single him out. These were moments that had shaped him, driving him to push harder, to prove that he was worthy of the success he dreamed of. And yet, even with all he had achieved, even with the billions he'd accumulated, there were places, spaces like this restaurant, where he was made to feel unwelcome. As he sat in the quiet park, Justin's initial anger gave way to a deep sadness, not just for himself, but for people like Rita, people who judged without understanding, who clung to narrow definitions of worth. He wondered what it would take to change those minds, to break down the barriers that divided people into categories, some deemed worthy, others unworthy. This moment, however painful, felt strangely familiar and powerful. He'd faced rejection before, he'd endured humiliation, and he had always come out stronger. But this time, as he looked out across the empty park, Justin felt a deeper resolve growing within him. He could turn his back on this place, on Rita and her narrow views, but something in him resisted the urge to simply move on. No, he wanted more than just personal satisfaction. He wanted to create spaces where everyone could feel valued and included, where people like him wouldn't have to think twice about where they belonged. In that quiet moment, Justin made a decision that would alter the course of his life. He wouldn't walk away from this. Instead, he would face it head-on. He had the means, the influence, and the determination to make a real impact, not just for himself, but for the people who deserved a place where they, too, could feel welcomed and respected. As he rose from the bench, Justin's heart felt lighter, filled with a new sense of purpose. The restaurant had rejected him tonight, but soon enough he would return, not as a patron, but as its new owner. And when he did, he would transform it, not just as an act of retribution, but as an act of redemption, a statement that inclusivity and respect could be the foundation of success. With his decision made, Justin walked back toward his car, the resolve in his stride unmistakable. His journey was far from over. If anything, it was just beginning. A new vision begins. A week later, Justin stood on the top floor of a high-rise office building, looking out over the city skyline. The view stretched endlessly, the buildings gleaming in the sunlight like a vision of opportunity and promise. But Justin's mind was elsewhere, occupied with the memory of that fateful night at the restaurant. The decision he'd made to buy the establishment was no longer just an impulse. It had evolved into a vision. And this time, it wasn't just a restaurant he was looking to own. It was an idea he wanted to make real. He turned to face the group of advisors he'd assembled, professionals with expertise in real estate, hospitality, and finance, all awaiting his instructions. His assistant, Mia, a sharp-minded and loyal woman who had been with him since his company's early days, stood close by, notebook in hand, and ready to act on his words. "I want a full background on the restaurant," he began, his voice calm but firm. "Ownership details, financials, employee structure, management style, everything. And I want to meet with the current owner personally. Make it happen as soon as possible." One of the advisors, a man in a tailored suit, gave him a skeptical look. "Mr. Taylor, are you certain about this? From what we know, this restaurant isn't exactly a lucrative venture. It's known more for its exclusivity than its profits." Justin considered this, acknowledging the unspoken advice. Why invest in a failing business? But to him, this wasn't just about financial returns. It was about something deeper, a chance to challenge the status quo. He had more than enough wealth to invest in a cause he believed in. And now he felt he had a mission. "That's exactly the reason I want to buy it," Justin replied evenly. "It's exclusive, yes, but who decides who gets to be a part of that exclusivity? And more importantly, why? I want to break down those walls." The advisor nodded, still unsure but not willing to press further. Maya looked at Justin with a small, encouraging smile. She understood him well, having seen the many moments where his determination transformed impossibilities into triumphs. The meeting with the owner, an unlikely ally. 2 days later, Justin found himself in the private lounge of an upscale club, waiting to meet the current owner of the restaurant, a man named Harold Jennings. Harold was known in the city's elite circles as a man of refined tastes, someone who prided himself on tradition and exclusivity. As Justin waited, he imagined how the man might react to the idea of selling his prized establishment to someone who intended to change everything about it. Harold arrived, a tall, silver-haired man in his 60s, dressed in an impeccable suit. He moved with an air of elegance that suggested he was used to having the best of everything. Justin rose to greet him, extending a polite hand. Harold looked at him appraisingly before shaking his hand, his expression unreadable. "Mr. Taylor," Harold greeted him, his voice smooth and formal. "I understand you're interested in buying my restaurant. I must say I'm curious about your reasons. It's not every day a man in your field takes an interest in the dining business." Justin smiled, appreciating the man's directness. "It's not just about business for me, Mr. Jennings. I see this as an opportunity to create a space that welcomes people from all walks of life. I think that's something our community could benefit from." Harold arched an eyebrow, clearly intrigued. "A noble sentiment," he replied, though there was a hint of doubt in his tone. But you must know that my restaurant has a reputation. People come there for the exclusivity, the ambience, the high standards. It's a carefully crafted experience, one that I spent years building. I understand that, Justin said, his tone measured. But I believe exclusivity and quality aren't the same thing. I want to preserve the elegance, the high standards, the incredible cuisine, but I want to do it in a way that allows more people to experience it. I want it to be a place where diversity isn't just accepted but celebrated. Harold studied him for a long moment, his eyes thoughtful. That's quite a bold vision, Mr. Taylor. But it seems to me you're proposing something that will alienate the very clientele that's kept this place running. Justin nodded, acknowledging the challenge. Yes, there will be some who won't understand the changes, but I'm willing to take that risk. I believe the restaurant can still thrive, and I want to prove that inclusivity can enhance, not diminish, its reputation. To Justin's surprise, a flicker of a smile appeared on Harold's face, though it was guarded. "You remind me of myself, you know," he said, his tone almost nostalgic. "When I first started out, everyone thought I was mad for opening an establishment as refined as this in a city like ours. I didn't just want to serve food. I wanted to create an experience. And I suppose, in a way, you want to do the same." The two men spoke for nearly an hour, discussing details, negotiations, and Justin's plans. By the end of it, Harold shook Justin's hand with genuine respect. "It's yours, Mr. Taylor," he said simply. "Do what you will with it. But be warned, changing people's minds is harder than it looks." Justin takes ownership. A new era begins. A month later, Justin officially became the new owner of the restaurant. He walked through its doors, feeling a mix of excitement and resolve. The familiar chandeliers gleamed overhead, casting a warm glow over the pristine, tastefully decorated interior. Yet there was a tension in the air, a sense of anticipation as the staff, many of whom had heard about the change in ownership, watched him with a mix of curiosity and apprehension. Rita, the restaurant's manager, stood near the entrance, her face carefully composed. She hadn't been told much about the new owner beyond the fact that he was a successful businessman. When she saw Justin approach, her eyes widened, and a faint flicker of recognition crossed her face. This was the man she had dismissed, the man she had subtly humiliated. And now he was her new boss. "Good morning, everyone." Justin greeted the staff warmly, his voice carrying that gentle authority. "As many of you know, I'm Justin Taylor, the new owner. I'm here to support each of you and to work with you to make this restaurant an even better place. I know change can be daunting, but I believe in this team and in what we can achieve together." The staff exchanged nervous glances, unsure how to respond. Some of them seemed to soften, nodding slightly in agreement, while others, particularly Rita, remained wary. Rita stepped forward, her face a mask of professionalism. "Mr. Taylor," she said, her voice steady, "we're, of course, committed to maintaining the high standards this restaurant has always upheld. I'm sure you're aware that our clientele values a certain level of exclusivity." Justin met her gaze, his expression calm but firm. "I respect the work you've done here, Rita, and I understand the importance of quality. But I believe we can maintain that quality while creating a more welcoming environment for everyone. I think it's time to broaden our vision, to be inclusive and truly reflective of the community we're a part of." Rita's eyes narrowed slightly, her carefully guarded composure slipping for a moment. She forced a smile, nodding politely. "Of course, Mr. Taylor. I'm sure we'll do our best to adapt to your vision." Justin could sense her resistance, but he wasn't here to argue or force his will. He knew he had to win the team over, to show them why his approach would make the restaurant not just profitable but meaningful. And he was prepared to do just that. Introducing new ideas. The first staff meeting. The next day, Justin called a meeting with the restaurant's leadership team. They gathered in the private dining room, a beautifully appointed space with floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the city. The team, a mix of chefs, Waitstaff leaders and administrative staff sat around the table, some with open minds, others with skepticism. "Thank you all for being here," Justin began, his voice warm and sincere. "I know this change in ownership has come as a surprise, and I want you to know I respect the incredible work you've all put into making this restaurant what it is. But I also believe we have an opportunity to make it something even more special." He paused, letting his words sink in. "I want this restaurant to be a place that welcomes everyone, regardless of background, income, or appearance. I want it to be a space where people from all walks of life can come together, enjoy a beautiful meal, and feel valued. And I believe that in doing so, we can build something truly extraordinary." Linda, a veteran waitress with years of experience and a kind demeanor, leaned forward, her eyes alight with interest. "Mr. Taylor, that sounds wonderful," she said earnestly. "I've always felt we could be doing more for the community, but I wasn't sure if anyone else thought the same." Justin smiled, appreciating her openness. "Exactly, Linda. I think by reaching out to the community, by hosting events, by making small changes in our approach, we can create a new kind of luxury, one that's built on inclusivity and respect." As he continued outlining his ideas, Justin noticed that some members of the team, like Linda, seemed excited, their faces lighting up at the prospect of change. But others, particularly those close to Rita, remained tense, their expressions guarded. Rita herself sat with a carefully composed face, her gaze shifting between Justin and her more receptive colleagues. When the meeting ended, Justin felt a renewed sense of optimism. He knew there would be resistance, but he also saw potential allies. Change would take time, but he was committed to making it happen. Rita's quiet resistance. In the days that followed, Justin threw himself into the task of transforming the restaurant's culture. He held individual meetings with staff members, listening to their concerns and ideas. He introduced new policies that encouraged teamwork, respect, and inclusivity. And he began planning a charity event that would welcome families from all backgrounds to experience the restaurant's cuisine, free of charge. But while Justin worked tirelessly, Rita quietly began to sow seeds of doubt. She moved among the staff, subtly voicing concerns about the changes, planting ideas that Justin's vision would ruin the restaurant's reputation. To longtime patrons, she expressed worry about the direction the restaurant was taking, hinting that it might become less exclusive and not the same place they'd loved for years. Despite her outward professionalism, Rita's resistance was growing, and Justin began to sense a subtle tension in the air. But he remained focused, determined to move forward with his plans. He knew that creating lasting change would require patience and resilience, and he was prepared to face whatever challenges lay ahead. As he walked through the restaurant one evening, watching the diverse group of patrons enjoying their meals, Justin felt a surge of pride. This was only the beginning, but it was a step in the right direction. He was prepared to navigate the obstacles, to work with those who supported him, and to challenge those who didn't. For him, this wasn't just about running a restaurant. It was about creating a legacy of respect, inclusivity, and community. And he was only getting started. Resistance and revelation. In the weeks following Justin's arrival as the new owner, the restaurant underwent noticeable changes. The posh establishment, once known for its exclusivity and tight-knit clientele of affluent patrons, now saw new faces dining alongside the regulars. Families, young professionals, and students who might have previously felt out of place in such a lavish setting now dined with ease, their laughter and conversations blending seamlessly into the atmosphere. Justin knew that change wouldn't come without resistance, and though he expected pushback, he wasn't prepared for the subtle but pervasive undercurrent of doubt and skepticism he encountered daily. The quiet but persistent murmurs of disapproval from certain staff members, the careful glances from longtime patrons, and the occasional whispers of concern made the tension almost palpable. Rita, in particular, had adopted a unique strategy. While she outwardly followed Justin's instructions, she remained resolutely opposed to his changes, her disdain just barely hidden beneath her polished smile. To patrons, she whispered her discontent, voicing concerns about the future of the restaurant and how it was drifting away from its original vision. Her words were carefully chosen, her tone empathetic, as if she were merely a concerned manager, trying to preserve the quality and integrity of a place she'd worked so hard to uphold. Behind the scenes, however, Rita's quiet defiance was more pronounced. She worked with certain staff members who shared her views, subtly encouraging them to undermine Justin's policies. She privately discouraged the new hires Justin had brought in, hinting that they weren't suited to the high standards the restaurant supposedly represented. She played on the insecurities of younger employees, implying that the restaurant's reputation, and by extension, their jobs, were at risk. Yet not all of Justin's changes met with disdain. Linda, the veteran waitress who had welcomed Justin's new vision from the beginning, became a quiet but steady supporter of his mission. She was an older woman with years of experience and a natural warmth that endeared her to everyone she worked with. She had always believed in kindness and inclusivity, and Justin's vision felt like a breath of fresh air. She saw in him a genuine desire to make the world better, to use his success as a means to uplift others. Linda soon became Justin's confidant and an ally within the staff. As she worked, she listened to the conversations around her, observing Rita's quiet campaign against Justin. Though she respected Rita's experience and professionalism, she couldn't stand by and watch the restaurant she loved become divided. One evening, Linda approached Justin as he sat in his office, poring over the restaurant's latest financial reports. She knocked gently, and when he looked up, she saw the slight weariness in his eyes, the look of someone carrying more weight than he let on. "Mr. Taylor," she began, her voice soft but steady, "do you mind if I speak freely?" Justin leaned back, gesturing for her to take a seat. "Please, Linda, and call me Justin." She smiled, nodding. "Justin, then. I wanted to talk to you about some things I've been noticing. Things that you might not be aware of." Justin's expression grew serious as he listened, his gaze focused on Linda. She spoke candidly, sharing what she'd observed about Rita's quiet resistance, the whispered doubts she'd spread among the staff, and her attempts to undermine his leadership. As she spoke, Justin felt a mix of disappointment and determination, his respect for Linda deepening with each word. "Thank you for telling me, Linda," he said when she finished. "I had sensed some resistance, but I didn't realize how deep it ran. It seems I have more work to do than I thought." Linda placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. "You're doing something incredible here, Justin. Don't let this discourage you. There are many of us who believe in what you're trying to accomplish." Her words steadied him, giving him the reassurance he needed to press on. He knew that if he wanted to make a lasting impact, he would have to earn the staff's trust, to show them that his vision was more than just words, and he would have to address Rita's influence directly. A confrontation with Rita. The next day, Justin asked Rita to join him in his office. He wanted to confront her about the issues Linda had raised, to address the underlying tension that had been simmering since his arrival. Rita entered the office with her usual composed expression, though Justin sensed a guardedness in her stance. "Rita, thank you for coming in," he began, his tone polite but firm. "I wanted to discuss some concerns I've heard regarding the changes we're implementing. It seems there's been some hesitation about our new direction." Rita's expression remained neutral, though Justin could see the subtle tightening of her jaw. "Of course, Mr. Taylor," she replied smoothly. "I believe many of us are simply adjusting to the new approach. Some of the staff, and perhaps a few patrons, may have concerns, but that's natural, isn't it? Change is challenging for some." Justin met her gaze, his eyes steady. "I understand that, and I expected some resistance. But I want to make sure that our team is united, that we're all working towards the same goals. I'd hate to think there was anything, or anyone, holding us back from creating the kind of environment we want here." Rita's expression flickered, just for a moment. She forced a smile, though it was brittle. "Of course, Mr. Taylor. I'll do everything in my power to support your vision for the restaurant." Justin could sense her reluctance, the tension just beneath the surface. He knew that Rita would likely continue her quiet resistance, that her smile was little more than a mask. But he was prepared. If she wasn't willing to embrace the changes he was making, then he would have to find a way to move forward without her. A new event, the first charity night. As part of his vision for the restaurant, Justin had planned a charity night, an event that would open the doors to families from all over the city, giving them a chance to experience the restaurant's cuisine and ambience without the usual price barrier. It was a gesture meant to welcome the community, to make a statement about the inclusivity he wanted to foster. Linda and the other supportive staff members embraced the idea enthusiastically, putting in extra hours to help organize the event. They decorated the restaurant with warm, welcoming touches, and the menu featured a variety of dishes designed to appeal to a wide range of tastes and backgrounds. Justin even brought in local musicians to perform, adding a lively, festive atmosphere to the evening. Rita, however, maintained a cold distance from the preparations. She voiced her concerns about the event to the other staff members, questioning whether it would be a wise move for the restaurant. "This isn't what our regular clientele expects," she murmured to one of the younger servers. "We're known for exclusivity, not for charity events. I just hope this doesn't backfire." The young server looked uncertain, casting a glance toward the dining room where Linda and others were setting up. But Rita's words had planted a seed of doubt, and he found himself wondering if the event might indeed alienate their wealthier patrons. The night of the event, the restaurant was filled with families from every corner of the city. There were children in bright dresses and parents in their best outfits, all marveling at the luxurious setting. For many, it was their first time dining in such a place, and their excitement was palpable. Justin moved from table to table, greeting guests with genuine warmth, his heart swelling at the sight of families enjoying the experience he had worked so hard to create. Linda worked alongside him, her energy infectious as she served plates with a wide smile, chatting with guests and making them feel welcome. She watched Justin as he moved through the crowd, noting the ease with which he connected with people, his sincerity evident in every gesture. "Thank you for having us here tonight," a young mother said to him, her voice filled with emotion as she held her toddler on her hip. "We would never have been able to afford this, and it means so much to be able to give our kids this experience." Justin smiled, touched by her words. "It's my pleasure. Everyone deserves to feel valued and special, no matter where they come from." As the night wore on, Justin saw the transformation he had hoped for. Guests who had once felt excluded from such spaces were now laughing, sharing meals, and enjoying the warmth of a place that was finally open to all. It was a powerful moment for him, a realization that he was not only changing a restaurant, but also changing lives. The backlash and Rita's plan. The success of the charity event sparked conversations throughout the community, with many praising Justin's vision and his commitment to inclusivity. Local media outlets covered the event, sharing photos of families enjoying the restaurant and highlighting the impact it had on the community. Justin felt a sense of fulfillment he hadn't known in a long time, as if he were finally achieving something that went beyond wealth or accolades. But not everyone shared his enthusiasm. The restaurant's regular clientele, wealthy patrons who valued exclusivity above all else, expressed their disapproval in quiet but clear ways. Some canceled their reservations, while others sent polite but critical emails, subtly questioning whether the restaurant's high standards would continue to be upheld. And Rita, sensing an opportunity, intensified her quiet resistance. She began whispering to regular patrons, lamenting the loss of the restaurant's original vision. "It's such a shame, really," she would say, her voice filled with feigned sorrow. "This place was once a beacon of elegance. Now it's just different." She knew that by sowing doubt in the minds of longtime patrons, she could create a wedge between Justin's vision and the restaurant's history. She played her role carefully, masking her words as concern rather than outright defiance, but her intent was clear. A turning point. Justin's next steps. Despite the backlash, Justin remained steadfast. He knew the road ahead would be difficult, that he would have to navigate the resistance from within and outside the restaurant. But he was determined to see his vision through, to create a place where people of all backgrounds could come together and feel valued. He began meeting with each staff member individually, sharing his vision and listening to their concerns. He encouraged them to voice their opinions, to tell him what they wanted from the restaurant, and to offer their ideas for making it a place that truly felt inclusive. Through these conversations, Justin discovered unexpected allies. Young servers who had felt out of place in the restaurant's previous culture, kitchen staff who had grown up in the very neighborhoods he wanted to welcome, and longtime employees who, like Linda, believed in the power of kindness and inclusivity. With each conversation, Justin felt his resolve strengthen. He knew he was up against resistance, but he also knew he wasn't alone. There were people within the restaurant who believed in him, who shared his vision, and who were willing to stand by him. As he prepared for the next phase of his plan, Justin reflected on the journey that had brought him here. He had faced prejudice, rejection, and doubt countless times before, and each experience had only made him stronger. This challenge was no different. Justin knew he was fighting for more than just a restaurant. He was fighting for a new way of defining success, one that valued inclusivity, respect, and community. And he was prepared to face whatever obstacles lay ahead, no matter how formidable. The battle for acceptance. Weeks turned into months, and though Justin had successfully implemented several changes, resistance from both patrons and certain staff members continued to linger like a quiet storm, constantly threatening to disrupt the progress he had made. Rita remained at the center of this quiet resistance, her influence subtle but steady, undermining Justin's efforts with whispered doubts and carefully planted grievances among the loyal customers and staff. Despite the friction, Justin's charity night had sparked something powerful. Families and patrons from all walks of life began visiting the restaurant, drawn not only by the exquisite food and elegant ambience, but also by the knowledge that they were welcomed. To them, it was more than a night out. It was an invitation to experience a space they might never have felt comfortable entering before. And to Justin, every new face, every heartfelt thank you, was a victory. Yet, beneath the surface, a quiet tug-of-war persisted. Wealthy patrons, put off by the new inclusivity, began voicing their concerns with increasing boldness, expressing their disappointment at what they saw as the dilution of their cherished establishment. And Rita capitalized on their discontent, quietly fostering a division that would ultimately force Justin to confront the difficult truth about the limits of acceptance and the personal cost of his mission. An anonymous tip and a brewing scandal. One morning, as Justin prepared to meet with a new community partner for an upcoming charity event, Mia, his assistant, entered his office with a worried expression. "Justin, we have a problem," she said, handing him her phone. On the screen was an article headline from a local gossip website. "Is the new owner of Blue Water Fine Dining fit to lead? Controversial past raises concerns among patrons." Justin's stomach dropped as he read the article. It was a thinly veiled attack, rehashing a decades-old incident in which he had been wrongfully accused of a crime he didn't commit, a painful memory from his youth that he'd worked hard to move past. Though he had been exonerated, the accusations alone had been enough to cast a shadow over his early career. And now someone had resurrected it to tarnish his reputation. Mia watched him carefully, her face a mix of sympathy and determination. "We both know who's likely behind this, Justin. It's Rita. She has contacts in the media, and she's been working tirelessly to make sure the right people know about her concerns." Justin took a deep breath, feeling the familiar ache of frustration, but refusing to let it consume him. "She's playing on people's doubts, Mia," he said, his voice steady but laced with disappointment. "But if she thinks this will make me back down, she's sorely mistaken." He knew he had to address this head-on. With a quiet resolve, Justin prepared a statement, one that reaffirmed his commitment to inclusivity, transparency, and respect. He shared his story openly, acknowledging the mistakes of his youth and his dedication to rising above prejudice. He didn't hide the hardship he'd faced, nor the hurdles he continued to overcome as a black man in the world of business and wealth. He spoke of his vision for the restaurant, his dedication to creating a space where everyone felt welcomed, and his commitment to proving that compassion and strength could coexist in any environment. His statement was met with mixed reactions. Many in the community rallied behind him, moved by his honesty and inspired by his dedication to creating change. But others, particularly some of the more conservative patrons, found reasons to doubt his sincerity. They questioned whether his vision could coexist with the exclusivity they had come to expect from Blue Water fine dining. As the controversy continued to grow, Justin realized he was at a crossroads. He could step back, minimize the changes, and try to restore the restaurant's former reputation, or he could push forward, embracing the vision he believed in, even if it meant alienating some patrons and staff. And he knew exactly which path he would choose. A leadership test. Recognizing that his leadership was being questioned, Justin called an emergency staff meeting. He wanted to speak openly with his team, to show them that he was willing to confront any challenge and led by example. As they gathered in the private dining room, he could feel the tension in the air. The staff members glanced at one another, uncertain of what to expect. "Thank you all for coming," Justin began, his tone calm but direct. "I know there's been a lot of talk, both inside and outside of this restaurant, about the changes we're making. I understand that change can be difficult, that it can bring out fears and doubts we didn't know we had. But I want each of you to know that I believe in this team. I believe in what we can accomplish together." He paused, letting his words sink in. He could see Linda nodding, her face filled with quiet support, while others, particularly those loyal to Rita, remained expressionless, watching him with wary eyes. "There's been some negative press recently," Justin continued, "about my past, about who I am as a person and as a leader. And I won't pretend it doesn't affect me. But I'm here to tell you that I am committed to this vision. I didn't come here just to run a restaurant. I came here to create a space where people from all walks of life can feel welcomed and valued. And I can't do that alone. I need each of you to be a part of it." He looked around the room, meeting each person's gaze, making it clear that he wasn't asking for blind loyalty. He was asking them to believe in his vision, to take a chance on something new, something that could redefine what success looked like for all of them. After a moment, Linda stood up, her voice filled with conviction. "I believe in you, Justin. I believe in what you're trying to do. This restaurant has always been about more than just food, and I'm proud to be part of a team that's willing to stand for something bigger." Several others murmured their agreement, and Justin felt a surge of gratitude. He knew there would always be those who doubted, who clung to old ways out of fear or prejudice. But he also knew that there were people like Linda, people who understood the power of kindness and resilience. Rita, however, remained seated, her expression carefully blank. She didn't voice her support, nor did she openly defy him, but her silence was telling. Justin understood that he still had a long road ahead, that he would need to face this opposition directly if he wanted to move forward. The gala, a defining night. One of Justin's plans to reshape the restaurant's identity was an upcoming gala, an event that would invite community leaders, local artists, and business owners to dine together, sharing a meal and conversation in the spirit of inclusivity. It would be a night filled with fine dining, music, and discussions on how businesses like Blue Water could foster a sense of unity within the community. As the night of the gala approached, the tension in the restaurant reached a boiling point. Rita had continued her quiet campaign against Justin's changes, warning longtime patrons that the new direction would destroy the restaurant's reputation. She sowed seeds of doubt, planting the idea that their beloved Blue Water would soon become just another restaurant. On the night of the gala, Justin arrived early, dressed in a tailored suit that lent him an air of elegance. He took one last look around, ensuring that everything was perfect. The dining room sparkled with soft candlelight, and the tables were adorned with delicate centerpieces that added a touch of warmth to the otherwise formal setting. As guests began to arrive, Justin greeted each one personally, his handshake firm, his smile genuine. He knew this was a defining moment, a chance to showcase the beauty of his vision and to prove to everyone, patrons and staff alike, that inclusivity could elevate the dining experience rather than diminish it. Linda, dressed in a graceful black dress, moved among the tables with ease, greeting guests and ensuring they were comfortable. She had become a quiet pillar of strength for Justin, offering him encouragement and support when he needed it most. Rita, however, was conspicuously absent from the main dining room. Justin spotted her hovering near the bar, speaking quietly with a group of longtime patrons. She glanced at him occasionally, her eyes filled with a mixture of resentment and something that looked suspiciously like defiance. As the evening wore on, Justin noticed a shift in the atmosphere. Guests from different backgrounds, once hesitant to interact, were now engaged in animated conversations, laughing and sharing stories over plates of artfully arranged dishes. Local artists discussed their work with business leaders, and families from diverse communities exchanged experiences with one another. The walls that had once divided them were breaking down, replaced by a sense of connection and camaraderie. Justin felt a surge of pride as he watched the night unfold. This was the heart of his vision, a place where people from all walks of life could come together, breaking bread and building understanding. Rita's last stand. The success of the gala, however, only served to heighten Rita's resolve to bring Justin down. She had already whispered doubts to the wealthy patrons she had cultivated over the years, fueling their resentment of the restaurant's new direction. But she knew she needed to do something more drastic if she wanted to regain control. A week after the gala, Rita called a secret meeting with several longtime patrons, inviting them to a private dining room after hours. She presented herself as the voice of reason, expressing her concerns about the future of Blue Water and the risk of losing everything to Justin's changes. One of the patrons, Mr. Worthington, an influential businessman, frowned as he listened to Rita's words. "What are you suggesting, Rita? That we try to push him out?" Rita nodded, her expression grim. "He's not suited to lead a place like this. His vision is admirable, but it's not sustainable. If we continue down this path, Blue Water will lose its exclusivity, its uniqueness. We need to make a stand to show Mr. Taylor that the people who built this restaurant will not stand idly by while he dismantles it." Her words struck a chord with the patrons, who were already uneasy about the changes Justin had introduced. They left the meeting with a sense of purpose, determined to push back against the inclusivity they saw as a threat to their beloved restaurant. Justin's response. The next day, rumors of the secret meeting reached Justin through Linda, who had overheard some of the patrons discussing it. She approached Justin, her face filled with concern. "Justin," she said quietly, "I heard some of the patrons talking. Rita's planning something big, something to try and stop the changes you've made." Justin felt a pang of disappointment, but he refused to let it sway him. He knew that change came with resistance, that progress was often met with fear and resentment. But he also knew that he was building something greater, something that would outlast any attempt to undermine it. He called a staff meeting that evening, addressing them with calm determination. "I know that there are those who doubt what we're doing here, who believe that our vision isn't compatible with Blue Water's history. But I want you all to know that I am committed to this path, to creating a place where everyone is valued and respected." His words resonated with the staff, especially those who had once felt like outsiders in their own workplace. They rallied around him, voicing their support and pledging to stand by him in the face of resistance. As Justin left the meeting, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. He knew that Rita and her supporters would not back down easily, that he would have to fight for the future he envisioned. But he also knew that he was no longer fighting alone. He had allies, people who believed in his vision, who were willing to stand with him in the face of adversity. For the first time since he had taken over the restaurant, Justin felt the full weight of his responsibility. He was not just leading a business. He was leading a movement, a fight for acceptance and understanding. And he was ready for whatever lay ahead, standing firm against the storm. In the weeks following the secret meeting Rita had organized with the wealthy patrons, Justin felt the weight of his vision bearing down on him more than ever. The resistance from within the restaurant, coupled with the community's divided opinion on the new direction, created an almost suffocating atmosphere. But even under pressure, he remained undeterred, driven by the conviction that Blue Water could become a space where everyone felt valued. One crisp morning, as Justin arrived at the restaurant, Mia met him with a stack of letters. The thick pile contained both written complaints from regulars who missed the old Blue Water and notes of encouragement from community members who'd attended the charity night or the gala. The response has been mixed, Mia admitted with a sigh. She handed him a letter from one of their oldest patrons, Mr. Lyle Beaumont, a man whose name had once been on the list of regular reservations every Friday night. Justin read the letter slowly, taking in Mr. Beaumont's concerns. It spoke of disappointment and nostalgia, a longing for the Blue Water that had served only the finest clientele. Each word seemed to tug at him, the tone almost pleading with him to restore what had been lost. It wasn't the first such letter he'd received, and Justin knew it wouldn't be the last. He closed his eyes, inhaling deeply before he looked back at Mia. "It's hard," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper, "to know that people believe you've taken something they loved and ruined it. But what they don't understand is that this isn't about tearing down a legacy. It's about building a better one." Mia nodded, her expression filled with understanding. "You're doing something bigger than just running a restaurant, Justin. You're fighting for a vision that matters." Justin offered her a small, grateful smile. "And that's why we keep pushing forward, even if some don't see it yet." Rita's power play. The tension between Justin and Rita reached its peak one evening, just before a regular dinner service. Rita had noticed a recent shift among the staff, a quiet but undeniable solidarity forming around Justin's leadership. Linda, the veteran waitress, had become a rallying figure, voicing her support for Justin openly and encouraging the younger staff to embrace the restaurant's new direction. Rita couldn't ignore this shift any longer, and she knew that if she wanted to maintain her influence, she would have to make a bold move. She was prepared to confront Justin directly, to demand that he step back from his changes and restore Blue Water's reputation. In her mind, she wasn't just protecting her position. She was defending the restaurant she had spent years shaping. That evening, Rita marched to Justin's office, where she found him sitting at his desk, studying a list of potential community partners for future events. He looked up as she entered, his expression calm and expectant. "Rita." He greeted her with a nod, but his eyes were alert, sensing the tension radiating from her. "Mr. Taylor," she replied, her voice stiff. "We need to talk about the future of Blue Water." Justin leaned back, gesturing for her to sit, but she remained standing, her posture rigid. "I've been patient," she began, her tone sharp. "I've watched as you've implemented changes, welcomed new clientele, and pushed for a vision that, frankly, does not align with what this restaurant has stood for all these years." Justin listened silently, allowing her to voice her grievances. He knew this confrontation had been coming, and he wanted to give her the space to say what she needed to say. Blue Water was built on exclusivity, on providing an elite experience, Rita continued. And in the past few months, I've watched that exclusivity slip away. Our regulars are leaving, our reputation is changing, and I'm not the only one who's concerned. Patrons and staff alike are worried about where this is going. She took a step closer, her voice lowering but gaining intensity. "I've spoken with several of our key patrons, people who've supported Blue Water for years. They feel alienated by the changes, and they're prepared to withdraw their support entirely. If that happens, this restaurant won't survive. I'm asking you to reconsider, to return Blue Water to what it once was." Justin met her gaze steadily, his expression unreadable. "And if I refuse?" Rita's jaw tightened, then I'm afraid you'll lose the very patrons who've kept this place afloat for years. The restaurant will suffer, and so will the staff who depend on those regulars for their livelihood." The threat was clear, and for a moment, silence hung heavily in the room. Justin felt the weight of her words, the veiled ultimatum she had just delivered. But beneath the pressure, his resolve only hardened. He knew that changing the restaurant's culture would come at a cost, but he was prepared to stand firm, no matter the consequences. "Rita," he said quietly, his tone calm but unyielding, "I respect your dedication to this restaurant. I know you've put in years of hard work, and I appreciate the loyalty you've shown to its patrons. But Blue Water isn't just a place for the elite. It's a place for the community, a place where everyone can feel valued and welcome." Rita's eyes flashed with frustration. "That sounds noble, Mr. Taylor, but ideals don't keep a business running. This restaurant can't survive on ideals alone." "That's where you're wrong," Justin replied, his voice gaining strength. "Blue Water is about more than profits and exclusivity. It's about creating a legacy of inclusivity, of showing that excellence doesn't have to be limited to a select few." Rita's expression shifted, a flicker of disbelief crossing her face. "So you're willing to risk everything? For what? To prove a point?" "No," Justin said firmly, "to create something meaningful, something that lasts. I didn't come here to uphold traditions that exclude. I came here to build a future that embraces everyone. And if that means losing some patrons along the way, then so be it." Rita stared at him, her composure faltering as she realized that her ultimatum had failed. She had underestimated his conviction, his willingness to stand by his vision, even in the face of opposition. Without another word, she turned and left his office, her footsteps echoing down the hall. Justin watched her go, feeling a mix of relief and sadness. He knew that by standing firm, he might lose Rita's loyalty, perhaps even her position. But he also knew that true change required sacrifice, that progress was often met with resistance, and he was willing to bear that burden. The staff meeting. A rally for change. The next day, Justin called a staff meeting. He wanted to address the growing tension, to give his team the opportunity to voice their thoughts and concerns openly. The atmosphere in the private dining room was tense as the staff gathered, their expressions a mix of uncertainty and curiosity. Justin stood at the front of the room, his posture confident but approachable. He began by acknowledging the challenges they'd faced, the backlash from patrons, and the resistance to the new direction. "I know that the changes we're making haven't been easy," he said, his tone sincere. "I understand that some of you may feel uncertain about the future of Blue Water, and I want to give you the chance to speak openly. I want to hear what you think, what you're feeling. Because this isn't just my vision, it's ours." For a moment, the room was silent, the staff exchanging hesitant glances. Finally, Linda spoke up, her voice steady but filled with conviction. "Mr. Taylor," she began, "I think what you're doing is brave. This restaurant has always been beautiful, but now it's becoming something more. It's becoming a place where people from all walks of life can feel like they belong, and I believe that's worth fighting for." Several staff members nodded in agreement, their expressions softening as they listened to Linda's words. But then a young server, Alex, spoke up, his voice uncertain. "I get it, Mr. Taylor. I do. But some of the regulars, they're not happy. They leave smaller tips now, and some don't come back at all. It's hard for us, especially those of us who rely on those tips. I don't know if we can keep going like this." Justin nodded, understanding Alex's concern. "I hear you, Alex, and I don't take those concerns lightly. But I believe that by staying true to this vision, we'll attract new patrons, people who appreciate what we're building here. It may take time, but I'm committed to supporting each of you along the way." He looked around the room, meeting each person's gaze, conveying his determination and belief in the team. "Change is never easy," he continued. "But I believe in the power of community, of inclusivity. And I believe that together, We can create a place that's not only successful but meaningful. If you're willing to stand with me, I promise you won't face this journey alone." The room fell silent as the staff absorbed his words. Some looked uncertain, but others, like Linda and several newer employees, nodded with quiet resolve. Slowly, one by one, hands began to rise, pledging their support for Justin's vision. Even Alex, after a moment's hesitation, raised his hand, a look of tentative hope in his eyes. Justin felt a surge of gratitude as he watched his team come together, their support a beacon of encouragement amidst the challenges they faced. He knew the road ahead would still be difficult, but he no longer felt alone in his mission. A new kind of patron. In the weeks that followed, Justin's resolve and his team's loyalty began to yield results. Word of Blue Water's transformation spread throughout the community, attracting new patrons, artists, young professionals, families, and community leaders who valued inclusivity and quality. They came not only for the fine dining experience, but also to support a place that stood for something more. The restaurant's new patrons were as diverse as the city itself, bringing with them stories and experiences that enriched the dining room's atmosphere. Conversations flowed easily, laughter filled the air, and the once stiff formality of Blue Water gave way to a warm, welcoming ambience. And with each passing day, the restaurant became more than just a place to eat. It became a community, a symbol of acceptance and unity. Justin watched this transformation with pride, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. He saw new faces, heard new voices, and witnessed connections forming across tables. The exclusivity that had once defined Blue Water had been replaced by a new kind of elegance, an elegance built on inclusivity, compassion, and respect. A final farewell. Rita, however, could no longer bear the changes. She felt out of place in the new Blue Water, her loyalty to the restaurant's former identity clashing with its new vision. One evening, after the dinner service, she approached Justin in his office, her resignation letter in hand. "I can't do this anymore," she said quietly, her tone a mix of frustration and resignation. "This isn't the Blue Water I knew. It's become something else, and I don't belong here anymore." Justin took the letter, his expression a mixture of sadness and understanding. "I understand, Rita, and I appreciate everything you've done for this restaurant. I know change is difficult, and I respect your decision." Rita nodded, a faint sadness in her eyes. "I hope you find what you're looking for, Mr. Taylor, but I can't be a part of this journey." With that, she left, and though Justin felt a sense of loss, he also felt a renewed determination. He knew that by staying true to his vision, he was building something that would outlast any individual, something that would stand as a testament to the power of resilience and acceptance, a legacy of inclusivity. As time passed, Blue Water Fine Dining thrived under Justin's leadership. It became a beloved fixture in the community, a place where patrons of all backgrounds came to share meals, celebrate milestones, and connect. The restaurant's reputation grew, not only for its exquisite food, but also for its commitment to creating a welcoming environment for everyone. Justin's vision had transformed Blue Water into more than just a restaurant. It had become a legacy, a symbol of what could be achieved when people chose to embrace diversity and inclusion. And as he looked out over the bustling dining room one evening, Justin felt a profound sense of accomplishment, knowing that he had not only built a successful business, but also created a space that truly belonged to everyone. The restaurant had changed him too. He had learned that true success wasn't about wealth or status. It was about making a difference, about creating something meaningful and lasting. And in that moment, Justin knew that he had found his true calling. Blue Water Fine Dining had become a place where people could come together, not just as patrons, but as a community, united by the simple, timeless power of acceptance and respect. The legacy cemented. Months passed, and the transformation of Blue Water Fine Dining was nothing short of remarkable. What had once been an exclusive restaurant catering to an elite few had blossomed into a beloved institution, a place where diversity and community were celebrated, and where excellence was redefined through inclusivity. For Justin, seeing the restaurant thrive was both fulfilling and humbling. His vision had been one of unity, of creating a space where everyone, regardless of background, could feel respected and valued. And although he had faced immense resistance and nearly lost hope, he now stood at the heart of a bustling, thriving restaurant that had become a beacon for the city. Recognition beyond the community. One summer afternoon, Mia entered Justin's office with an excited look on her face. She held a letter in her hand, and the golden seal on the envelope caught Justin's attention. "Justin, you have to read this," she said, barely containing her enthusiasm. Justin raised an eyebrow, taking the letter from her. As he unfolded it, he quickly scanned the words, his eyes widening as he realized what he was reading. The letter was from the National Culinary Guild, announcing that Blue Water Fine Dining had been nominated for an award recognizing excellence in innovation and inclusivity in fine dining. It was one of the most prestigious honors in the restaurant industry, awarded to establishments that had made significant contributions to their communities while maintaining exceptional standards of quality. "This is incredible," Justin murmured, a genuine smile spreading across his face. He looked up at Mia, who beamed back at him. "It's more than deserved," she replied, her eyes shining with pride. "You've taken this place and turned it into something so much more than just a restaurant. People are noticing, Justin. What you've built here is groundbreaking." Justin felt a surge of pride and gratitude. The nomination was a testament not only to the work he had done, but to the collective efforts of his entire team, the staff who had stood by him, and the community that had embraced his vision. He had set out to create change, and now that change was being recognized on a national level. A reunion with Harold Jennings. News of the award nomination spread quickly, and soon after, Justin received a call from Harold Jennings, the restaurant's previous owner. Harold's voice was warm and congratulatory, and he invited Justin to lunch, eager to catch up and see the restaurant in its new form. A few days later, Harold arrived at Blue Water. Justin greeted him warmly, leading him to a table by the window where they could talk privately. Harold looked around, taking in the lively atmosphere, the diverse mix of patrons, and the welcoming ambience that filled the room. "Justin," Harold began, his voice laced with admiration, "I have to admit, I never would have imagined Blue Water like this. It's different, but in the best way possible. You've created something extraordinary here." Justin smiled, his eyes reflecting a mixture of gratitude and humility. "Thank you, Harold. It wasn't easy. There were moments I thought I'd never be able to make this vision a reality. But seeing it now, it feels worth every challenge." Harold nodded thoughtfully. "When I first sold the restaurant to you, I wasn't sure if your vision would work. But now, I see that it's exactly what Blue Water needed. You've not only expanded the clientele, you've expanded its heart." They spoke for hours, reminiscing about the restaurant's journey, the hurdles Justin had overcome, and the moments that had defined its transformation. By the end of their lunch, Harold raised his glass, his eyes bright with pride. "To Blue Water," he toasted, "and to the future you've built here." They clinked glasses, a quiet acknowledgement of the legacy that had been passed down and transformed, a legacy that now belonged not only to Justin, but to everyone who walked through Blue Water's doors. The gala night, a celebration of community. Months later, Justin hosted the most ambitious event Blue Water had ever seen, a gala dedicated to celebrating the restaurant's impact on the community and the award nomination it had received. Invitations went out to patrons, local leaders, nonprofit organizations, artists, and members of the city's diverse communities. The theme was Unity in Diversity, a testament to the values that had shaped Blue Water's transformation. The night of the gala, the restaurant gleamed with elegance, adorned with fresh flowers, and lit by hundreds of candles that created a warm, inviting glow. Guests arrived in their finest attire, filling the dining room with laughter, music, and a sense of excitement. Linda, who had become one of the restaurant's senior leaders, took charge of welcoming guests and overseeing the evening's details. She moved through the room with grace and warmth, her presence a reminder of the loyalty and dedication that had sustained Blue Water through its most challenging moments. At the height of the evening, Justin took the stage, his heart pounding as he looked out at the sea of faces before him. He felt a swell of emotion, a deep appreciation for each person in the room, each individual who had believed in him and supported his vision. "Thank you all for being here tonight," he began, his voice steady but filled with feeling. "Blue Water has been through many changes, and it hasn't always been easy. But tonight, as I look around this room, I see a reflection of the vision I had when I first took over this restaurant. I see people from all walks of life coming together, sharing in this experience, and that, to me, is the true essence of Blue Water." He paused, letting the words settle, and the audience listened in rapt attention. "This restaurant isn't just a business," he continued. "It's a place where we can all feel connected, where we can celebrate our differences and our shared humanity. Blue Water has become a symbol of what's possible when we choose to open our hearts and minds to welcome each other with respect and compassion." As he concluded his speech, the room erupted in applause, a standing ovation that filled the space with a sense of unity and pride. Justin felt a profound sense of gratitude wash over him, knowing that he had not only built a successful restaurant, but had also created a legacy that would endure. An unexpected visitor, Rita's return. As the guests mingled and the evening's celebrations continued, Justin was approached by a familiar figure, Rita. She had left the restaurant months ago, but tonight she stood before him, looking more composed than he had ever seen her. "Justin," she said, her voice soft, "may I speak with you?" Justin nodded, leading her to a quieter corner of the room. He could see a hint of nervousness in her eyes, a vulnerability she had never shown before. "I wanted to come tonight to see for myself what you've accomplished," Rita began, her tone almost apologetic. "I know I didn't support you, and I regret that. I was so attached to what Blue Water used to be that I couldn't see what it could become. But tonight, I understand." She paused, her gaze dropping. "You were right, Justin. About everything. You created something beautiful here, something that means so much to so many people. And I just wanted to apologize." Justin looked at her, his expression kind but resolute. "Thank you, Rita. I appreciate your honesty. I know change is hard, and I know you did what you thought was best for the restaurant. But sometimes, holding on to the past means we miss out on building a better future." Rita nodded, a faint smile crossing her face. "You've done that here. You've created a future I couldn't have imagined. I hope one day I can build something like this too." They exchanged a few more words before Rita left, and Justin watched her go, feeling a quiet sense of closure. Her journey was her own, and he wished her well, knowing that she, too, had been part of Blue Water's story, even if only for a season. A lasting legacy. As Blue Water continued to thrive, Justin received an invitation to speak at a national conference on diversity and inclusion in business. His story had become a beacon of inspiration, a reminder that businesses could succeed by embracing compassion and inclusivity. At the conference, he shared his journey, the challenges he had faced, and the impact his vision had made, not just on the restaurant, but on the community. His words resonated deeply, and by the end of his talk, he was approached by business leaders, nonprofit organizers, and activists, all eager to learn from his experience. He returned home to Blue Water with a renewed sense of purpose, ready to continue building on the foundation he had created. He knew that his work was far from over, that there were still challenges to face and opportunities to grow. But he also knew that he had built something that would last, a legacy that would continue to inspire others long after he was gone. The final toast. One quiet evening, after the last of the guests had left and the staff had finished closing up, Justin gathered his team in the main dining room. They stood together, tired but proud, a close-knit family bound by shared struggles and triumphs. He raised a glass, looking around at the faces that had supported him, that had believed in his vision even when it seemed impossible. To Blue Water, he said, his voice filled with gratitude. To every one of you who stood by me, who made this place what it is. Together, we've built something extraordinary, something that belongs to all of us. Here's to many more years of serving this community, of making everyone who walks through these doors feel like they've come home. They clinked glasses, a quiet but powerful moment of unity that filled the room with warmth and hope. As they stood together, Justin felt a deep sense of peace. He had fought for his vision, he had stayed true to his values, and he had created a place that would endure. Blue Water Fine Dining was no longer just a restaurant. It was a legacy of acceptance, compassion, and resilience. And for Justin, there was no greater success.